It's interesting to consider that most people have not seen Walt Disney's most notorious film. In fact, if you ask people what they know about Song of the South, they'll likely cite characters like Brer Fox, Brer Bear, and Brer Rabbit, even though they only appear in a fraction of the film. Honestly though, those animated segments, they're by far the most memorable parts. Most of Song of the South is made up of live-action segments, with a few moments where the two interact. Mixing animation and live action is something that Disney had been experimenting with since the Alice comedy shorts back in 1923. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People were so impressed with that aspect of Song of the South, they commended the film for its technical wizardry. That said, the NAACP wasn't all that fond of some of the themes in the film. There was a feeling that Disney may have perpetuated a dangerously glorified version of the South during the time in which the movie took place. Disney's Song of the South was released in 1946, so still a few years before the start of the civil rights movement in the United States, just for context. The film included several notable stars like veteran screen actress Lucille Watson, who started her career in silent-era films like The Girl with Green Eyes. Frequent Disney collaborators Luana Patton and Bobby Driscoll appeared in the film. I believe this was Driscoll's first role at Disney Studios. He'd go on to appear in a number of films for Disney, but I bet most people here recognize him as the voice of Peter Pan.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. Would you do something for me?
For thyself, young Jack in the Box?
Well, I think for all of us. For everybody, everywhere. Could you bring back Uncle Remus? Would it be too hard to do?
Now, slow down there, Bobby. Before we get a chance to discuss Uncle Remus, let's chat about Aunt Tempe. Hattie McDaniel is probably one of the most important performers to appear in Song of the South. Not only could she act, she was also a talented comedian, singer, and songwriter. In fact, I had read that she was the first black woman to sing on the radio here in the United States. She started appearing on film in 1932. Many, or even most of her earliest roles were uncredited. For example, Miss McDaniel played a maid named Mammy Lou in the Western drama The Golden West. These types of roles would kind of become Hattie's trademark. The Mammy stereotype was not uncommon at the time. The depiction of a heavy-set black woman caring for the needs of a white family was nothing new, having appeared in pro-slavery literature as far back as the 1830s. Since then, images like these had appeared on everything from pancake mix to salt shakers. Heck, the Daughters of the Confederacy even proposed a Mammy statue to be erected in the National Mall in 1923. Thousands of people protested that idea, but you might be surprised to learn how close that Mammy monument almost came to be a reality.
Come on!
Hattie McDaniel's most well-known role would have to be in the 1939 American epic Gone with the Wind. The film was incredibly popular, breaking attendance records and going on to be one of the highest-grossing films of all time. That said, there were many people, even at the time, that saw Gone with the Wind as a problematic film. It's been criticized for its depiction of African Americans and for whitewashing the issue of slavery. There is a Southern myth that some of you might be familiar with, known as the Lost Cause of the Confederacy. It portrays slavery in the South as a benevolent act. It depicts a version of Confederate states where enslaved individuals were largely happy and did somewhat benefit from slavery, learning trades and skills, etc. The Lost Cause was a popular distortion of history that would prevail in literature, textbooks, and even cinema well after the Civil War.
The whole Confederate Army's got the same troubles, calling, closing, dysentery.
So, let's take a moment to look at Ms. McDaniel's character in Gone with the Wind. She played a house servant named Mammy working on a cotton plantation in Georgia. She's responsible for tending to the needs of Scarlett O'Hara, which is a challenging task for sure. I know that I would lack the necessary skills to sew a dress out of curtains.
That gown is gorgeous.
Thank you.
I saw it in the window and I just couldn't resist it.
It's said that Hattie McDaniel was well liked by the cast and even hit it off with the film's star, Clark Gable.
Gala days in Dixie. Streamlined Wings of the Wind bring Hollywood to Atlanta for a history-making world premiere of the motion picture epic Gone with the Wind. And Clark is his usual modest self.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I am here just as a spectator. I want to see Gone with the Wind the same as you.
After dark, all Atlanta turns out for the big parade that starts 3 exciting days of celebration. Grand March. Governors of neighboring states and notables from all the nations see Atlanta's elite and Hollywood's elect revive the grace and gallantry of the Old South. Atlanta's few remaining boys in gray are guests of honor.
Gone with the Wind premiered at Lowe's Grand Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia, like all of the Deep South at the time, was segregated. Jim Crow laws meant that several states could keep blacks and whites separate in public venues or even ban African Americans altogether. Lowe's Grand was an all-white theater, and actors like Hattie McDaniel were not allowed to attend the premiere with their white co-stars. Now, even though she wasn't allowed to attend the premiere of Gone with the Wind, Ms. McDaniel was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She became the first black woman to win an Oscar in 1940. It's kind of wild to consider that we wouldn't see another black woman win an Oscar until Whoopi Goldberg in the 1990s, some 50 years later. This has given some people reason to assume that for a long time in Hollywood, a person of color couldn't be successful unless they took certain prescribed roles. Hattie McDaniel came under fire from several advocates for helping to perpetuate negative stereotypes of African Americans. Ms. McDaniel continued to appear in similar parts, and in 1944, she'd take the role of Aunt Tempe in Walt Disney's Song of the South. The film Song of the South takes place in the Reconstruction era just after the Civil War. Aunt Tempe is a hard-working woman and cook living in the state of Georgia. McDaniel showcases her singing voice at one point in the film with the song Sooner or Later. Her voice attracts the attention of Uncle Remus, who may be more interested in a piece of pie.
But you ain't gonna get it. Some folks does the work while others just visit. Sit around whittling and telling stories like Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit. Stick his nose in this here kitchen, and we have Brer Rabbit stew.
Now, Remus is likely the most notorious character in Disney's Song of the South. He's played by actor James Baskett. Previously, Baskett had voiced one of the crows in Walt Disney's full-length animated film Dumbo. Disney was pretty impressed with Baskett's talent and hired him to play one of the most integral characters in Song of the South. Unfortunately, there is still some baggage that comes with the character. The original text describes Remus as someone who has nothing but pleasant memories of slavery. Many people feel that this character, as well as James Baskett's portrayal, has done more to romanticize the South and the treatment of African Americans during this era. Just like Gone with the Wind, Walt Disney's Song of the South would have its premiere in Atlanta, where the African American cast couldn't attend. Think about that. James Baskett, the actor who played Uncle Remus, could not attend the premiere of the film based on Uncle Remus. Baskett did, however, win an honorary Oscar for his work on Song of the South, making him the first black man to take home an Academy Award.
It's the truth. It's action. Everything is satisfaction.
He's heading your way again. Uncle Remus, the immortal storyteller in Walt Disney's honored motion picture classic.
Since its initial release, Walt Disney's Song of the South would return to theaters from time to time. For example, moviegoers could celebrate the film's 10th anniversary in 1956. It was also re-released in 1972 and played alongside the Aristocats in 1973. It had another theatrical release in 1980 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Joel Chandler Harris's book. Then in 1986 to celebrate the film's 40th anniversary. As far as I know, Disney has never released the complete film on home video, DVD, or Blu-ray. and it doesn't currently appear on Disney+, and I doubt it ever will. The characters of Brer Fox, Brer Bear, and Brer Rabbit would be repurposed for the attraction Splash Mountain in 1989. Uncle Remus would not appear in this attraction and was somewhat replaced by Brer Frog. Several of the film's songs would appear on the ride, which, I think is probably the most memorable part of the attraction, at least for me. So, you know what? Our next video in this series will discuss some of the music that originated in Song of the South. I'll do my best to cover them all and chat about any problematic elements we may encounter. But for now, I'd like to discuss your thoughts on Song of the South. How do you feel about actors like Hattie McDaniel or James Baskett? What do you think about Walt Disney's version of Uncle Remus? I always appreciate the insight of others, as long as you can keep things civil in the comments section. This is a polarizing topic with a lot of gray area, worth discussing as long as you can be polite and considerate. We've only just scratched the surface on this topic, so if you're looking to dig a little deeper, I'll do my best to drop some links and some additional resources in the description of this video. Thank you so much for checking out this segment. Please do us a favor, click that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to Retro Spectrum so you don't miss a single episode of Details.